right, ladies and gentlemen, syndicated across the United States and simulcasting right now over the web at prisonplanet.tv. I'm Alex Jones, and for the next few segments, we have John Rhys-Davies coming on, and then later we have the director and producer of the film Reclaiming the Blade coming on the radio show as well. When the director contacted me and said he liked the radio show and that he'd like me to see his film, I was flattered. I had a chance to see it. It's really the history of swords, the whole culture, chivalry. And then when I saw that John Rhys-Davies was in it, this is the guy who's plays one of the main characters in some of the Raiders of the Lost Ark films, like the original, and then also the one where they're looking for the Holy Grail. He's Gimli, my favorite character in Lord of the Rings, and so many other big films and Shakespearean productions. And he joins us from the Isle of Man, where my friend Rick Linklater just finished shooting a film about Orson Welles a few months ago. I've never been to the Isle of Man, but I'm told it's very interesting. And it's just great to have Mr. Davies on with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
It's my pleasure to join you. As I said, it's a beautiful evening here in the Isle of Man. The sun is setting over the Irish Sea, and it's a nice, clear evening. Bit of cloud in the sky, but it's warm and pleasant and just beautiful.
Well, it's great to have you here. You don't really need any introduction, but tell us, how did you get involved in this documentary film, Reclaiming the Blade?
Well, I get sent a number of scripts, some of which are very good, some of which are pretty mediocre. This one really stuck out like a sore thumb. When I say a sore thumb, I mean a very golden thumb. It was on a subject that I'd not seen covered before, and it had a lot of material in it that I thought was unique and fascinating. Anyone who's interested in history at all will be interested in this extraordinary documentary. The sword is such an elegant symbol of so much, isn't it? The sword is a symbol of the cross. The sword is man's means of protecting himself. The sword is it's a symbol of justice. The sword is generally double-edged. The sword it would be the state of the art of metallurgy in any civilization. I mean, there was a fascinating story the other day. There's a very great Viking sword maker, and he signed some of his pieces. But some of them were puzzling to archaeologists because there were fragments of them. And they did some metallurgical analysis, and they discovered that somebody somewhere had been forging this swordsmith's work.
Ah.
They had produced a marvelous cutting edge with the steel that they'd produced, but it was just too hard. The real stuff was forged from the right sort of ore, brought all the way from Afghanistan, would you believe? The local stuff that had been passed off by this swordsmith was indeed very pure iron and very pure steel, but it was fragile. So imagine you spend a fortune buying this legendary swordsmith's work, and the first time you're in battle and you smite your enemy's sword, your axe shrivels up into a pile of little shards, and you think, oh dear. And the other guy looks at you and smiles and comes towards you.
Man, I was almost taken away there. I was imaging all of this and forgot I was on the radio.
It's great stuff. In a way, technology is always at the cutting edge of a civilization. And sadly, of course, much of that technology is war-inspired. But the sword was a great...
All right, Mr. Davies, we've got a break. John Rhys-Davies is our guest. This film's amazing. It's got the sword master from Star Wars in it.
Finally in the news this evening, it's being reported that cyber spies from Russia and China have now penetrated our power grid. Even as energy experts are reporting that each summer we get closer and closer to the limits of our nation's power grid, some say that this summer's demand for electrical power may finally push the grid over its edge, creating a cascade of power outages across the country, putting us all in the dark.
Are you prepared for the next round of storm-related outages or government-created blackouts? Have you ever thought about taking steps to get off the grid and generate your own private supply of electrical power? If so, this will be the most important information you have ever heard. Solar-powered generators are finally available. They have no moving parts to wear out or break and require absolutely no gas whatsoever. Remember, the government doesn't own the sun, so go to mysolarbackup.com. That's mysolarbackup.com. Check out mysolarbackup.com before you lose your power.
Well, he played Sala in the first big mega hit, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And, of course, he was Gimli the Dwarf in Lord of the Rings and so many other huge movies and a lot of other productions as well. And he's in this new film, Reclaiming the Blade, reclaimingtheblade.com. And we have Daniel McNichol coming on a little bit later to join both of us here in this hour. He joins us, of course, from the Isle of Man, and it's great to have John Rhys-Davies on with us, who needs no introduction. But for folks watching us as we stream over the web, we'll put his picture up on screen. I've got so many questions. During the break, I was bringing up the fact that Mr. McNichol told me that this does have somewhat, not even of a political message, but of a liberty message, a freedom message, with this Reclaiming the Blade, and about how this was something to fight back against corruption, oppression, how that freedom, that skill was lost. I guess the whole history of the blade and the sword and how important it is, and people fighting for the right to own a sword has been lost. And I was asking you what your whole view on the world is.
Well, you're right, and Daniel is right. The sword is a symbol of liberty. And liberty is something that's very challenged these days. I mean, there are things that overtly challenge our civilization. And because we tend to be rather modest, and rather, we don't want to politically upset people needlessly, we tend to stand back a little bit. But look, Western European Christian civilization is very important. It has produced art, music, drama, theater, dance, beyond the imaginings of any other culture. It stands for the liberty of the individual, the right of the individual to think and, to the extent that he doesn't affect others, practice virtually anything he believes. It celebrates democracy. It celebrates the right of democracy over theocracy or any other isocracy. It's about the equality of men before the law. It's also about the equality of women with men in front of the law. It doesn't assume that women are third-class citizens. It has abolished slavery. Now, you must understand, slavery is an issue that particularly resonates with me. When I was a little boy, my father was a policeman in Africa. He took me down to the dockside in Dar es Salaam Harbor in 1955, and he said, "You see that dhow there? Twice a year it comes down from Saudi Arabia. It stops in Aden, comes down the coast, goes here, goes to Beira in Portuguese Mozambique. On the way down, it's got machine tools and machine parts. On the way back up, it's always got 2 or 3 little black boys. And these are slaves going back to Saudi Arabia. And the United Nations will not allow me to do anything about it." Saudi Arabia only abolished slavery in 1965. And there is still slavery present in Saudi Arabia, I will wager. But these are huge gains for mankind that our civilization has made. And you've got to understand that certain religions, certain faiths, certain things, they have their strengths. But in a way, the way we engage in our civilization and within our faith is the way that we turn out as people. And our civilization allows us to become rubbish, or it allows us to do almost anything. Other religions are more straitjacket in their intellectual approach to education and theocracy and things like that. But ours gives us an unassailable liberty, and we must always be prepared to defend it. I'm proud to belong to Western European Christian civilization.